My favorite part is having you on demand.
I love it.
I know. I feel like, am I taking advantage of this too much? Am I
Nope.
supposed to be using her this often? But I love the feedback. I love that I think it really helps me to share my wins with somebody who knows.
Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, and also happy spring if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. I was talking to my boys who live in Chile. They were telling me they're going into fall. So happy fall if you live in the Southern Hemisphere. I love seasonal change, and I love the conversation we're having today with my long-term client, Emilee. And Emilee is going to share some incredible results that she has had because of her commitment to consistently implement Connect Method Parenting. She's going to walk us through the entire journey from what it looked like when she found me a few years ago to the mindset shift she's had to create for herself and practice until they've become her new default that really have allowed her to take a new set of actions and create incredible success for herself as a parent. Now you're going to see the real, the raw, all of it. We don't sugarcoat it. So you're going to see it all. And I love that you get to see what the journey of Connect Method Parenting looks like for other people. It's so nice for you to hear from other perspectives, other parents that have implemented and they're sharing what it looks like in their home, because it's going to help you see that it's possible in your home. I hope that today you'll be able to take away some of the things that Emilee shares and use them in your life to start seeing a difference with your parenting right away, with your nervous system, with the quality of relationships you're able to create with your kids, with the ability to stop using those punitive consequences and timeouts and groundings and all of the things that we do when we're trying to control our kids. We don't need to use them anymore. And you're going to see such a beautiful example of what that looks like in some real situations that Emilee shares with her kids, that none of that was needed and incredible things happened as a result. So grab your notebook, grab a pen, get a drink, and let's dive in. Emilee, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your experience with Connect Method Parenting. First up, I want to just ask you a little bit about yourself so people can get a glimpse of who you are and the dynamics in your home. So could you just do like a 30-second picture of you and your fam?
Sure. We have 4 children who have all come into our lives at different unexpected ways because they're all adopted through foster care. So we became an instant family of 2, a 3 and a 4-year-old. And I just got thrown into being a parent.
Yes.
Yeah. And then our 2-year-old joined us a year and a half later. And then our brand new baby came, and she'll be 1 in 2 weeks. So we got 4 kids in 3 years. I was working full-time as a teacher, and I quit my job when our baby was born. And now I am a full-time stay-at-home mom. I have a little part-time job that I do just from home. And we also just made an international move. We moved to the Yucatan in Mexico. So we've had a lot of kind of
so much.
Yeah.
So many changes, and the instant family thing just hits me just because you just go from none to just instantly having 1 and then 2, right? It's just like so crazy to think about that. How was that for you, just out of curiosity?
I was like, I'm a teacher. I can do this. I've had, hundreds of
30 children at a time.
Exactly. It was, honestly, I feel like we've kind of worked backwards. Like we started with 2 and they were 3 and 4. And then we got a toddler in diapers. Like our first didn't have diapers. And then we had a newborn with all the stuff that comes with newborn. And so I'm like, in some ways, I feel like it's kind of been easier because we've already been to that stage. So we kind of worked backwards. And
that's so different. Oh, I love it.
To start with 2 because they entertained each other. Mm-hmm. And it was definitely overwhelming because there were all these things and I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. Like we need car seats and high chairs and because we didn't start from, 0. You
didn't start from a baby. How old were the first 2?
They had just turned 3 and 4.
Okay. You were just thrown into the toddler stage instantly, which will be interesting to unpack for everyone to hear, just to miss those couple first years and to start connecting and start building the relationship and the trust and all of that, a couple years into their life is amazing. It's amazing all the things you've done. So incredible. So let's rewind a little bit and tell me how you discovered Connect Method Parenting and found your way into that world. And what was that journey like when you found it and then you ended up joining? Any difficulties that you had by embracing it or diving in? Tell us about that.
I actually first heard about it from my aunt, and she sent it to me and my sister and my other aunt. And it was before I even had kids, because I was living with 1 week on, 1 week off, my two nieces who were struggling, and they were early teen and tween and just had a lot of struggles. And she's like, here, you're not a mom yet, but you're basically being a mom to them. And it was just like a workshop that you did. And I remember I first learned the 6 minutes a day of like the connection at the different points throughout the day. And also the whole concept of like no consequences and rewards. And I felt like I wanted to fight it, but it resonated with me. But everything was like, no, but it can't work. And so I loved the 6 minutes a day, and I like ran with that, and I did it with the girls, just that connection. And I felt like it really helped. And then someone even in the group was like, oh yeah, because my aunt was like, did everybody watch Andy's workshop? What do you think? And I was like, yeah, I really like it. And one of the people was like, I don't believe that. Like, how is that even possible? And I like wanted to agree with her, but something in me was like, no, Andy's right. Like, I want to figure out how this works. Like, this is the parent I want to be, like, even though I wasn't a parent yet. And so then it was less than a year later that we got our first two kids, and I just jumped in. I think that's when I joined your first, it was called Tribe back then.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to learn everything I can about this. And I will say, I think I told you this in one of our office hours, is like, I heard someone say somewhere that it takes 7 times to be introduced to something before it like actually clicks.
Yes.
So I'm the prime example of that with your program. Is I feel like it's been 5 years now, and I've been in and out of your program or listening to your book and listening to your podcast. And I feel like just in the last few months with this last 8-week program, it has like, it feels freeing. Like, I feel like I finally got it and it's finally clicking. And so that's kind of where my whole journey has been with you.
Oh, I love it. Thanks for retelling all of that. It's so fun for me to hear, because I can remember myself through all of those phases as well. And hearing you say, that you had someone who listened to it say, I don't even know if this is possible, because it doesn't feel, you want it to be possible, but at the same time, your brain's saying there is no way. There is no way that this is going to work, even though I wish it would. That would be amazing. Right. So yeah, the whole journey. So when you started, you finally committed, you got your first two. Were you worried about anything, like the commitment of time? Or you could just go back to the last 8 weeks, because you just went through the parenting pivot, which is awesome, which was a pretty intense boot camp / like, let's build the whole entire CMP framework in 8 weeks for you, which is so fun that we can now do that. But so either time, like you enter, how was it? Were you worried commitment wise, time wise, all of the things? Tell me.
I feel like the biggest thing I was fighting up against was the one-on-one time. And when the tantrum, like the whole set, stay, I was like, who has time for that? I'm making dinner, I'm like, Andy has 6 kids. I only had 2 or 3 and now 4. And I'm like, does she know? Like, has she not actually had, or are her other kids perfect while she was sitting with the tantrum thrower? Because that's impossible.
No, they were not.
And then I listened to one of your podcasts, and multiple over the years, that made me realize, like, it doesn't have to look like you sitting down for 45 minutes with that one child. Like, it could look like them hanging on your leg while you are making dinner, or them, sitting next to you while you're changing the baby's diaper. That was kind of freeing for me, because it is about time. And the biggest aspect is it has to do with me and how I'm feeling internally. And once I clicked that, like, everything else changed. Because before, if I'm not like calm, or my nervous system isn't regulated, I can't handle her hanging on my leg while I'm cooking dinner or holding my hand while I'm changing the diaper. I'm wanting to like smack her away. And
Yes.
so it all comes down to me and how I'm feeling and if I'm in control, whether or not I'm able to handle the situations. And so that has been a huge challenge that initially I was like, this isn't possible. And then it's not.
Mm-hmm. Yay, it's possible. I love that you're
Yeah.
bringing out the fact that it's more about how we're emotionally showing up for our kids, whether I can literally sit with you or you just need to sit by me, or maybe they need some time alone, but I'm still emotionally available and have the capacity to allow them to be where they are without getting triggered myself. That's the key. And you know what else is super interesting, because you're not the first one who has said this, is that coming in, one of the roadblocks is thinking that this is going to take so much more time than what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But then when we calculate the time that you're spending managing the behavior, giving the consequences, fighting the tantrums, all of the things, it's a lot less time actually once you get the hang of it. And in the long run, a lot less time, a lot less time. Yeah. What do you think about that? You agree?
I totally agree. And last night, I'm super strict about bedtime. I think we've talked about this.
Yes, we have.
And my husband knows, and all of our neighbors know, because like we're in Mexico and no one goes to bed till like 11 o'clock. And my kids are like, Mom, can we just be Mexican, please? Because why do we have to go to bed early? So last night we usually go on a walk after dinner, and I like to be like start getting ready for bed at 7, so everyone's asleep by 8. And we were walking home, and it was like 6:45, and all of my kids' friends come up. We have like a little park in our community, and they were like, please, can your kids come play at the park with me? I'm like, no. My initial reaction is no, no, no. And I just said, okay, we have 15 minutes. I can let them play at the park, rather than me going home and saying no to them right now and spending 45 minutes getting them to stop throwing tantrums because they're mad that they didn't go play at the park. So we took the 15 minutes and it was fine. And I had a neighbor friend that was in the park anyways, and my husband was visiting with them. And the kids played basketball for 20 minutes, and then we went home and we got to bed on time.
So beautiful. I call it the pivot. I know it's a little confusing because I have like the 8-week parenting pivot, and then there's the pivot, which is in our seen and heard framework, which is how we do connective response plans. But that's a great example of the pivot where it's this way. This is how we run the show, but I can shift gears from a compassionate alpha way, stay in the lead, stay connected, and still have, the boundaries I want, be firm and compassionate at the same time. We don't have to choose, we can do both, which is so beautiful. And then they're all connected, and you're going to have better cooperation when it is time to go in if you decide. And you could have done the other one too, right? There's no right or wrong way, but it's nice to know I can do that without, breaking down my authority as a parent or something. You don't have to choose.
Right. I love the pivot. I was just listening to that this morning, actually, on the thing.
Oh, good.
I think the biggest thing is that I've been asking myself internally is, what are my reasons? Do I like my reasons? Because a lot of the things in the rules, that we have are just because, well, that's what it's supposed to be, and that's the way it's supposed to be. But when I ask myself, okay, why am I making them go home right now? I've got about 15 extra minutes. Am I just trying to like control the system,
Yeah.
Or do I have like a safety issue, or do I have like a reason that I like? And so that's something that I've been asking myself too, when the pivot, and like, can I pivot in this situation? Or do I really like my reasons for saying no at this time, and we're just going to move on and deal with what's coming? Because that's okay too.
It's totally okay too. It keeps you in that confident position as a parent, which their nervous systems need. It's not arrogant. It's not controlling or domineering. None of that. It's just staying in the lead so our kids' nervous systems can relax. And then we get to choose what serves them. Exactly what you said. Does this serve them? Is this good for all of us tonight? It is, or it's not. And it's so empowering. And the rigidity that comes with the concept that I have to get my kids to do something with a consequence and reward, it doesn't allow for the flexibility, because if I don't have these rigid rules, then what do I have? And everything falls apart. But you don't need any of that when you're in this place. And so you can be flexible and stay in the lead and get the kids to cooperate. It's magical. It's so magical. I love it. Thanks for sharing that example.
Yeah.
So Let's talk about the parenting pivot because you just went through that. When you stepped into it, what was the experience like for you? Did it feel like the workload, the accountability, the support? Like, what was that like for you? Because you said, you've been working on this in and out, and then the 8-week parenting pivot came out and you committed and you went through it and it made a huge shift for you. So yeah, tell me what the experience was like going through those 8 weeks.
I really loved the accountability in it and the constant reminders in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I was literally thinking, Andy's probably thinking, am I sending too many emails? And I'm going to tell her, no, she is not,
Oh,
because
good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. I need to send more emails then.
yeah, it really was a good reminder because it was like everywhere. We had the app, we had the email, it was on the podcast. So I had no
Mhm.
excuse. I was like listening to it in the car, or, when my baby was napping at home. And then I would get those reminders in the morning to be like, okay, this is what you're supposed to do every day. I just loved the layout of it, how it outlined. It gave us enough time to do everything, because I feel like that's also been a struggle. My brain wants to do everything all at once.
Yeah, me too.
And so when I started, reading your book, even, I was like, oh, I want to do all of the homework at the end of the chapter, in 20 minutes or less or whatever. And it wants to go everywhere. And so it was really nice to have that like honed in focus of, you have my permission to only work on this one thing for this week.
Love it. Yeah, because the CMP mastery course, which predated this, was just this massive, I mean, it is what it sounds like, a master level course on this, but it was so much. It was a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
So this next iteration was, let's just get it tailored down to very specific, very constrained weeks. And then after the 8-week parenting pivot, going in and having monthly focuses where it's kind of the same idea, but it's like, okay, now let's just spend the whole month focusing on this one thing and fine tuning it and perfecting it and getting that neural pathway solidified in. So I love the way I've taught it has evolved over the years. Like, it's really fun. And it's fun because you've kind of been here for quite a bit of the ride. So you've seen it evolve. So it's super fun.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part of League? Whether it was the pivot, the parenting pivot, or the normal stuff that we did before that, but what was it for you? If you're new to Connect Method Parenting, I have a great way for you to get started. I created a free course that covers some of the biggest challenges parents are facing and how Connect Method Parenting solves them. In an hour, we're going to talk about why parenting is so hard, how to get your kids to want to listen to you, how to stop yelling and losing your cool, and become that calm, confident, connected parent for good. It's the fastest way to get started using connection as your go-to tool for influencing and impacting your kids. Go to cmp.works/course to get instant access today.
My favorite part is having you on demand.
I love it.
I know. I feel like, am I taking advantage of this too much? Am I supposed to be using her this often? But I love the feedback. I love that I think it really helps me to share my wins with somebody who knows, because I don't have it. I mean, I have one aunt who we do this with and we talk about you together a lot, but it's nice to have someone who understands like how much my wins are. Because I was even just telling my husband, I'm like, do you notice the differences in me? And he's like, yeah, I do. And I'm like, well, maybe you should tell me it. I'm like, I want to hear that I'm doing good. And he's like, you're right, I should tell you. But it's like, he doesn't know what I've been working on. So he doesn't know
Right.
really like what to look for. And so it's really nice to have, that I can just text you and say, hey, these are my amazing wins, or come to the office hours and talk about something that I might need to tweak or I'm struggling with, or just send a message. Like, the quick, easy way of communication has been also a game changer for me, because before, when I was lost, I was like, okay, well, what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
In the old program stuff.
Yeah, the way it used to be back in the dark ages.
Yeah. Yeah.
2 iterations ago, whatever. Yeah, I call it the CMP hotline that you can text at any time, which is so fun. I love that. And then being able to have office hours I've loved it. Just be able to have these regular times where people just pop in and there's no set agenda. It's just come in, ask questions, listen to other people, get help. And yeah, so many people have loved that addition. So
Yeah, the office hours, even if you don't even get to ask, like, I was there and I heard one of the ladies say similar, her question was similar to mine. And then when I asked my question, she was like, "Oh, Emilee, thank you so much. Like, that's exactly what I wanted to ask next." And so we just learn from each other. And
Mm-hmm.
even if we're not the ones getting the coaching.
Yeah. When I first decided I've got to have Emilee on the podcast and tell me, or it was in an office hours, and I still remember because it was so fun. At the end of it, you're like, "Can I just tell you my wins? Because I will do a happy dance." I'm so excited for all of the wins because I've been through this same journey myself. I know the struggles and the pains, and man, I wish someone was there doing a happy dance for me every time. It's so good. And you started naming off all of these wins. And I was so inspired and honored that you would share them with me. And I thought, if you could share these with more women and dads, let's not discount the dads, but there's some of them that are listening, parents, but mostly moms. I think they'd be so inspired to see what's possible for them. So I'm wondering if you could share just a couple of your stories that you shared with me, either that day or if there's others that have popped up between now and then that really show the impact of implementing connect method parenting for you and for your kids.
Yeah, of course. Like several come to mind. I'll start with one that I think has been struggling. So our 8-year-old son and then 7-year-old daughter. I've struggled connecting with her the most because she was basically nonverbal at 3 when she came
Mm.
to us, and she has a hard time expressing herself, and she has a hard time kind of understanding what's going on, and she has big emotions but she doesn't know, and she just says, I think I taught her this because then she repeats it all the time. I'm just having a hard time. I'm just having a hard time. I think one time I'm like, "What's wrong? Are you having a hard time?" And so now anything, she just repeats that.
Uh-huh.
And in my mind, I want to like figure out what's wrong so I can fix it. So we have struggled. And she is part of my big mama goal of the
Mm.
program, and just being able to hold space for her and allow all of her emotions. And so a couple of weeks ago, that was part of my response plan, is to just kind of sit and listen and let happen whatever and not jump into, you know, either pushing her away or giving a consequence. And she was playing with her sister up in her room, and they were like probably wrestling, which we tell them 100 times not to. And the walls here are concrete. And so if you hit your head, it's not like sheetrock, it hurts. So her little sister hit her head against the wall and was like screaming. And, my husband and I both are like, "What? Who? Where? 911."
Mm-hmm.
They both come down sobbing. And I'm like, "Who got hurt?" And Luna is the older one. And she was crying because she thought she was getting in trouble. And then Stella was crying because she was hurt. And my initial reaction was like, okay, push Luna away. Let's take care of Stella because she caused her to, she got hurt. But I think my husband took care of Stella, and I just grabbed Luna, and she didn't want to talk. And so I just held her, and it was really hard. I remember sitting there thinking, don't say anything. Like I had to remind myself, don't say anything. Don't ask her what happened. Don't say, don't lecture her. Don't give her. And I just sat there, and she just melted into me. And it didn't
Mm.
last very long, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And then she said, I was just playing. We were bouncing on the bed, and Stella hit her head on the wall. And I said, okay. And then I didn't say anything else. And then I said, I can't wait until me and you get to decorate your room, because she has these stickers that she wanted to put on her wall. So I made I don't remember what you call it.
The bridge.
The bridge. Yeah.
Yeah, you bridge to the next point of connection. Yes.
So I didn't lecture. I didn't say anything because I knew it was an accident. So I'm like, why am I going to, like, she knows, like, nothing I'm going to tell her
Right.
is going to be different. She knows what happened. They were bouncing on the bed. They shouldn't have. She got hurt. And then she was able to regulate. She stopped crying. She went off. She gave me a hug. And then, like, this is where I was like, this is amazing. About 30 minutes later, I was in the kitchen doing dishes, and she came up behind me and she was like, Mom, can we talk? Can we go in my room and talk?
Your jaw dropped.
And
What?
I was like, what? Yes. Like, this is my child, who I literally, like, I have a really close friend of mine that I'm always talking to her about Luna. I'm like, Luna doesn't talk. And she's always like, when she's ready, she'll talk. And I'm like, whatever. Like, I just need to make her talk. And so I came up in her room with her, and we sat on her bed, and she just like unloaded and was like, Mom, I
Mm.
feel like sometimes my brain tells me to do things that aren't good choices and it tells me I'm a bad girl. And she
Mm.
was crying and I was crying, and I just was like breakthrough that she opened up and she talked about things, and I feel like I'm always in charge of my sister, and just a really big
Oh.
breakthrough. And I
Mm-hmm.
just reassured her and said she's amazing, and it just really opened up. And since then, it's happened like 3 times. She'll come up to me and she'll say, "Can we please go talk in my room?" And she'll tell me about her day, or she'll tell me about, I felt sad on the playground because nobody wanted to play with me. And I was like, oh my gosh,
Yes,
it
like
worked.
yes, yes, it's working. Well, for her to be
Uh-huh.
able to take that trip from mad to sad, to be able to express what she's feeling, yes,
Yeah,
the safety you created really for her, that nothing was wrong with her.
right.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing that because that's a tricky one for a lot of us that want things to happen on our timeline. We want them to open up when we want them to open up, even though for us, we can think about situations where we were not ready to open up or we didn't feel, safe enough to process our emotions in front of somebody. So, beautiful example of that. Just the magic that happens when we connect instead of correct. So good. So, so good.
That's an example. I mean, it has to do with me, but it mostly has to do with my kids. And then this is an
Yes.
example that has to do mostly with me.
Okay.
Because
Perfect.
I'm going to preface it with this. I feel like the biggest click for me this time around has been in recognizing that everything starts with me.
So good. Yes. Best and worst news, right?
Right. Well, and it's interesting because I know that, and I've definitely had moments where I go into self judgment and shame. But for me, recognizing and understanding that it has to do with me and my triggers and my nervous system has been like so freeing
Hmm. Yes.
because it put me in control.
Right.
And so I pause every time something's happening. And now instead of being like, oh, what do I need to do to them? Or what do they need? Or I just need to, give her a candy so she'll be quiet or on this. I look at myself and say, okay, what do I need? What's going on with me right now
Hmm.
so that I can be in control of this situation, of my feelings, not in control of their emotions.
That is so, so good. I hope everyone heard that because once we start to understand that, the shifts really start to happen. And when you realize there's nothing wrong with me that I have these triggers, like, of course, I have these
Right.
triggers. I'm a human, I have big emotions, I have things that happen in my life. It's not a problem. There's no shame about it. It's just recognizing it and saying, all right, well, this is what's coming up for me. And I can do something
Exactly.
about it. And I love that I can do something about it because then I can feel in control, even in the most chaotic, crazy situation that my brain used to say, red alert, everything's gone terrible.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So I can't wait to hear this.
Which leads me into this red alert moment that I had in Costco.
All right. I can't wait.
So we were eating in Costco, and it was, imagine like whatever Costco you've been to on a Saturday afternoon and how crowded it is, and times that by 3 because that's how crowded the Costco is here all the time. It's the only one. And so just that like explodes my nervous system. I'm like, I can't be
Mhm.
here at this time anymore.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then we're sitting down getting all of our food. And I'm like, apparently my family has outgrown the tiny Costco tables because there's too many people and too much food and too many drinks all in one tiny space.
Yeah.
And now I don't even remember everything that happened, but it was just like one thing after another. I think my daughter picked up her pizza and like all the cheese fell down on her, and
Mhm.
like someone spilled a drink, and just little by little. And I just kept telling myself, okay. I think I had prepped really good that day because I didn't really need that much help to kind of calm my nervous system.
So good. Well, and the culmination of all the work you'd been doing, right? Like it starts to build where your new normal changes a little bit. So, love that.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I was kind of amazed, like, how was I able to make that happen? Because
Mhm.
after one little thing happened after the other, I just kept saying, okay, this is fine. Everything's fine. And then I think the straw, I say, that should have broken the camel's back was my husband was holding my baby and she kicked over ice cream and it flicked like all over me and on my 4-year-old, and spilled, I think, a soda on the table on our food and was just
Mm,
like everywhere. There was this moment, I remember it was like a split second, and I looked up at my husband, and my kids were, I mean, like looking at me like, what is she gonna do? Like, is she gonna explode? Are we gonna pick up and leave? And like, what's gonna happen? And it was like this whole conversation I had in my brain that really only lasted like a half a second, but it felt, longer.
yeah.
And I just was like, okay, this is a make or break it moment. Like, I was like replaying what's going to happen if I freak out and like get mad, or what's going to happen if I just laugh. And I looked at my husband and he kind of got a smirk on his face and we both just like busted up laughing.
So good. It's
And
so
it
amazing.
completely diffused the situation.
Hmm.
And then my kids like took a deep breath, like, okay, I'm allowed to laugh now too. And then
Yes.
we were just sitting there, like licking the ice cream off of ourselves and laughing in the middle of this chaotic Costco experience.
Oh my gosh. I love everything about this story. First, it shows the new normal that you were in to be able to actually handle this crazy sodas, ice cream, pizza, cheese falling everywhere, all of the things. And then the example you were able to set for your kids of this is not a problem. This is totally okay. And the way that sent out a message with your mirror neurons, their mirror neurons picked it up and like, I guess we can laugh. I guess this is funny. And just think generationally what that tells them, down the road that like there's so many messages of it's safe to make mistakes. It's safe to have chaos, have things not go the way you want them to be. It's okay if things don't go perfectly and I don't need to freak out about it. And mom's setting the example for that. I love this. It's so
Yeah.
so good to see what happens over time when you put in the work consistently to change the neural pathways so that your nervous system literally has a new tolerance for safety. Like the ice cream isn't dangerous anymore. That's all over,
Right.
which would used to be like, this is threatening. This is not a problem. And nervous system attacks it as if it was a tiger about ready to eat us. So,
Yeah.
oh my goodness. And just the trickle effect of that, these little, not little things happen. And pretty soon more and more safety and more things start to happen. And life's not perfect still. We were talking about this before we started recording. It's not that like
Right.
now everything I do, every interaction I have with my kids is absolutely, could be captured on film and posted on social media and be like, this is my real life for real. But even the mess ups aren't too terrible. We're like, I can pivot, I can change, I can go on, I can recover. I know what to do. It doesn't destroy my confidence. It doesn't destroy the relationships. Do you have any thoughts about that? Like how it's perpetuated or built on itself as you've, continued on after the Costco? And I was thinking your Costco thing sounds kind of like my baby powder blizzard. It was like that moment where it's like, oh, this is like worst case scenario. And I didn't react the way I thought I was going to. Well, I did react the way I thought I was going to. And then I shifted. Yours was even better. But like one of those moments of, oh my gosh, my mind is blown. What just happened?
Right. That was kind of the breaking moment for me where I recognized it was possible and I can switch those like limiting beliefs and the that I've had that, this equals danger. And so that helped me to remember, oh, look, it was possible before, it can be possible now. And like you said, it's not perfect. And I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking the other day, like, how could I explain this to someone that, is struggling or is seeing like, I don't see myself ever getting there. And or, oh, I hear all these moms on her podcast and whatever, their lives
Yeah.
are that perfect and I don't believe it. I feel like before it was like, I'm going to say probably 90. It was like 90% of me just like getting overwhelmed. I like lived in overwhelm, like
Mm-hmm.
90% overwhelm and frustration and 10% like letting things go or, being able to laugh it off. And now it's switched. It's not 90-10, definitely. It might be like 70-30.
That's amazing though. That's amazing, really.
Yeah. I've been able to make that shift and like that is more of the norm now of
Mm-hmm.
like letting it go and recognizing, when I'm in overwhelm. And I even have told my kids recently, this is something I've really wanted them to recognize is that it has nothing to do with them. It's not their fault like when I get overstimulated. And so I've been practicing just telling them, "Hey, can you guys please go and play in your room for a little bit? It has nothing to do with you. my lava is getting really high. That's what we've kind of put it on.
I like it.
Or I'm going to go to my room right now. I need 20 minutes because my lava is going to overflow.
Mm-hmm.
And letting them know, like, it has nothing to do with you. And that has been a game changer too, of
Mm-hmm.
helping them, not me feel the guilt of like me pushing my kids away. Because before it's like, I need to be by myself. Everyone go
Yeah.
away and leave me alone. And
Yeah.
now it's like, I'm not pushing you away. I'm kind of taking my time for myself so that I can come back and we can have a calmer day or evening or whatever.
So beautiful. Taking full ownership for this is my experience. I'm going to own it. It's not the best right
Yeah,
now, but it's not your fault.
right.
I'm going to own this. Where before, yeah, it's so easy. And I was completely the same way where it's like, I need to go to my room because I can't handle you, and the message we're
Exactly.
sending is you're too much. It's your
Hmm.
fault. If you were better, I would be better, which is, I mean, if they do behave better, it would be easier for us to behave better, but it's not their fault that we're
Right.
overreacting to their totally developmentally appropriate, immature behavior that they're supposed to do because they're kids. So I love that.
Yeah.
And just having that awareness and that tool to pull out of our pocket when we need it, because we will need it, because things are going to happen. Of,
Hmm.
hey, I got to take care of this and it's not your fault. It's me. It's no one's fault, actually. It's just, humans having a human experience. Like they have such a healthy relationship too of, oh, it's okay to get frustrated sometimes. I can process that and feel that. And I don't have to blame anybody for it. Like I can take ownership. So that's also so cool as they get
Right.
older. Man, that's what
Yeah.
we all want our teens to be able to do. So many moms come
Right.
in, they're like, you're blaming me for everything. And I'm like, I get it, because that's our human default. So we can flip the script on that by setting the example ourselves. So I didn't capture this and I want to just go back really quick to the Costco thing. What do you think your primary thought was that allowed you to just end up laughing?
I know. And we did this in one of our coaching sessions. And I remember thinking my thought of, oh, I didn't like nothing has gone wrong because I didn't believe
Mm-hmm.
that for a long time. I do
Mm-hmm.
believe that now. I've gotten that. But I think I've been doing so much work with I am safe, like nothing is
Mm-hmm.
dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Because I realized that was like the ultimate trigger that would like it felt unsafe. It felt which seems kind of silly because you're not like in imminent danger, like nothing's dangerous, but that's what like I went into fight or flight.
Yeah.
Something is not safe here.
Yes.
And I've been doing a lot of work and meditation with just that like I am safe, I am safe, I am safe. And so
Mm-hmm.
just repeating like nothing is dangerous, nothing has gone wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the thought that ultimately got me to like, I can just laugh about this.
Oh, the safety thing was a big one. You've probably heard me say this, but I had to sit with the I am safe, sitting in quiet meditation, doing what I teach you guys, the daily piece,
Yeah.
but doing this really deep dive in the middle of it where I'm safe. It's fine. I'm safe. This is okay. And you're right. It does on one level feel silly. I'm like, there's nothing dangerous happening in my life. Like my life is not in danger. Yet I
Right.
feel threatened to the point where my body is reacting as if it is in danger. So I want to honor that part of me and sit until I create the safety. That's so good. It's fascinating that our brains think ice cream flicked all over us is not safe because it's
Right.
obviously we're not going to die, but
Right.
it feels really big. So I love that that was the shift. That I am safe. I could just sit in that emotion all the time. Because when you feel safe, was there a different emotion that came along with it? Like, was it just the feeling of safety or was there something else too, do you think, in that moment?
Yeah. I'm trying to think back. I feel like just that just brings calm.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes me from, on that, like in all my daily pieces, I'm like, I just find this pattern from going from, I'm like, am I allowed to use the same emotions every day? Because
Every day you
my
can.
biggest
Yes.
shift my biggest shift is I just call it from overwhelm to calm
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like in overwhelm, I you can't think straight. You can't
Mm-hmm.
reason, you can't react appropriately. And then in calm is the only way I mean, I'm sure there's a better word.
No, I think
But
it's beautiful.
in calm, I just feel like, oh, you just kind of slow the picture down. It's not on fast forward and you can observe everything and you can be present and
Mm-hmm.
you can see things for what they are, like spilled ice cream instead of like a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
And I feel like, yeah, calm is just my new favorite feeling.
Me too. It's one of my favorites. Even feeling calm if another emotion creeps up, saying, okay, I can even feel safe and calm if like there's part of me that's a little bit maybe starting to get agitated or irritated or annoyed or frustrated, like, but I can still feel calm even as I greet that emotion. And then it allows me to settle more into calm, kind of that 70-30, I'm more calm than I am something else. And it's not a problem that I feel the whole gamut anymore either. Like I'm calm with all emotions. I love it. So if the old you, the you before you started learning and implementing connect method parenting, could see you now, or maybe, since you started even before you had kids, the old you when before it was really clicking, could see you now, what would you think she would say to you?
You are amazing.
Yes, gosh, absolutely, that's what she'd say. How did
Yeah.
this happen? I can't even believe it. Yeah, you are
You
amazing.
did
So
it.
he's so good. Oh my gosh. I love thinking about that because there's those times of disbelief or where we're really hoping, but it doesn't feel like it's possible. That when we feel the momentum picking up, it's just like, oh my gosh, I won the lottery. How did this happen?
I feel like that too. I think the biggest thing is recognizing that it is possible. And if you put in the work, that I feel like the triggers, and I think I told you this, the trigger
Mm-hmm.
section, I think it was week 2,
It
was
was.
like the biggest pivot for me. And I was talking with my aunt about it. I was like, you need to join, you need to do this, you need to do week 2 of the triggers, because we've talked about it for a while, but it was just, and I didn't even do like the deep dive work. I just did listen and like kind of talked it out in my head. And I was like, man, imagine what I could do if I actually sat down for an hour uninterrupted, which is hard to come by, and
Right.
like journaled and like did the worksheet that goes along with it and really dived in, because it just gave me permission to feel however I'm feeling,
Mm.
and recognize that it's coming from a need that I'm lacking, and that it has nothing to do with my kids or their behaviors, but everything to do with me and my limiting beliefs, which have caused me to feel unsafe or triggered in throughout my life. And again, like it just put me in control, and it just was so freeing.
Yeah, I love the trigger release week. It's so good. It's
Yeah.
so good. Everyone should come do it. We're going to do another 8-week pivot with whoever comes in with a new group in May. So that'll be really fun. Hopefully everyone will take your advice and really deep dive on that trigger week.
Yes. Do it.
What advice would you give someone, speaking of someone coming in and doing the program, what advice would you give someone who's struggling? They're like considering trying connect method parenting now, maybe coming in and doing league and entering the 8-week pivot, which is the first part of league, but they're not sure. And you've kind of talked about this, but like they're not sure if it's going to work for them. They're doubting themselves. What advice would you give them?
I would say, like, you get out of it what you put into it,
Mm-hmm.
because just like with anything, it's not a quick fix, and it's not. I love, your videos how you're like, how to stop yelling or how to get your kids to want to listen to you. And I'm like, yeah, if only you could learn that in an hour. Like, it's
Right.
just not
Wouldn't that be the
possible.
best?
Yeah.
If I could, I would. The brain just doesn't seem to cooperate with me. It just has other plans.
Right.
Like, it takes time to make new neural pathways. I'm like, okay, fine. We'll have to work with what we got. But yeah, it does take
Exactly.
commitment and consistent effort. But if you
Yeah.
do the effort, if you do the steps, what's really cool is it actually works.
Works. Yeah.
Crazy.
And I would say don't get overwhelmed or critical of yourself when you feel like you have setbacks, because I was just thinking, great, this is not a good day to report the podcast, because my kids just had a 2 week long spring break, which felt eternal. And I wasn't my best self a lot of that time, because it's really hot here. It's been like over 100 degrees. And
Oh my gosh, already.
yeah,
Wow.
and so we've been in the pool or spending a lot of time indoors, and just a lot of cooped upness. And I'm like, oh, so you're not going to always be perfect at it. And it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And as you choose one thing at a time, that's also been my biggest thing. My brain always wants to
Yeah.
solve everything all at once. Like, oh, I have a problem with this child, or with this child, or with bedtime, or with dinner time. And I want to just jump in and do everything, but it really works so much better if you just hone in on one thing at a time and try to focus on that. And then once you start seeing small improvements, like, with my daughter or with dinner time, then you're like, it works. Now I'm going to try it with this child, or now I'm going to try it
Yeah.
in getting ready in the morning. And so it just kind of seeps into every aspect of your life once you kind of see that you are actually making progress.
Such good advice. To constrain to one focus, which we call our big mama goal, which you referenced earlier. It's like your brain says, no, I don't want to only have one target. I need to have 20. But you focus on bedtime, or you focus on a relationship with one child, or even when the kids come home from school, and you start making progress on that. And then it does trickle into everything else. And then I love what you said about it doesn't have to be perfect all of the time. In fact, if anybody promises for any product, like you're going to take this thing and it's never going to, you're never going to have a problem again, we should all run because humans just
Right.
don't work that way. We're going to have new things presented to us that with parenting, it's like our kids get older, some situation changes, we have new stresses in our life that we have to figure out how to deal with on top of parenting. And so there's always going to be opportunities for learning and growth. But if we look at all of the times where even we're not at our top capacity, as, hey, that's fine, let me just learn and grow from that. Let me take that as a, moment in time where I can say what was inhibiting me from reaching my full capacity, my full potential, then
Mhm.
everything is for our learning and growth. So now the failures aren't a problem anymore. And I think that's a big thing, is when we are like, oh, I had a setback, I had a failure, it obviously isn't working for me. It's like, no, it's
Right.
totally working for you. You're just a human.
Yeah.
Now, like you said, 70% of the time doing it the way I want to, and only 30% of the time not showing up the way I want to, that's huge. And it'll
Yeah.
creep up. Sometimes you'll be 90-10, and sometimes maybe a little bit less if we're sick or things are a little bit extra stressful. It's okay. But the capacity continues to increase. And so we get to show up a little bit better and a little bit better over time. And that's what really matters, is laying our head down at night and saying, I can respect the parent I was, even if that was not a perfect day. I recovered, or I'm learning, all of the things. So I kind of love
Right.
that we did it on the end of your spring break, so we could have like that real conversation of, yes, this is working amazing, and there's still more for me to do. Like, I still, 2 weeks with the kids at home is a little bit, you know challenging, and that's totally fine. That's not a
Yeah.
problem. That doesn't
Hmm.
mean everything's falling apart and I have to cast this aside and revert back. Oh,
Right.
so good. Such a good conversation. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you'd like to share?
I have one more example if I can.
Yes. Oh, please. I love examples.
Okay. It happened like 2 days ago. We went swimming and we're we've been letting our 4-year-old take her floaties off and like practice every time. But when we went, there was lots of kids in the pool and we had the baby and the other kids, and so we let them know ahead of time, hey, we're not going to take our floaters off in the pool. It's just going to be a quick swim because we have other things to do. And everyone was like, okay, I'm fine. So my older two jumped in. They had a great time. We said you can stay in the kiddie pool, or you could without your floaters, or you could be in the big pool with your floaters. And the second we got into the pool, our 4-year-old wanted to like just jump in without her floaters, and she's not there yet. And so, you know, hence the begins the 45-minute sob of I want
Mm,
to swim without my floaters.
yeah.
And everybody at the pool staring at us. And in my mind, I love this because we've done work on this too, of like the judgment of others. Like,
Yes. Hmm.
and I was sitting there and I was thinking, they're probably really annoyed about my child right now, but that's not my problem.
I love that. Oh my goodness. Yes.
And
Yes.
so
Yes.
this was
Yes.
more like a big kind of internal win for me because I would have normally either given in because I didn't want her to cry, or which I thought about it and I was like, okay, what are my reasons? And again, I talked through myself and I'm like, is this a
Hmm.
control thing? Or do I have good reasons? Like, this is safety. We have the baby. She's not in her floater. We have the other kids. There's lots of kids in the pool. And so I'm like, nope, I like my reasons. I'm
Hmm.
not going to pivot and say, guess what? You get to swim without your floaters
Yeah.
now.
It wasn't the right time to do that. It was like, no, this is a safety issue. 100%.
Right.
Yes.
I set the limit and I said, okay, these are, remember our choices. Like, you can swim without your floaters in the kiddie pool, or you can put them on and stay by me. And then she just, and I had her snuggle by me. We sat on the steps for like 15 minutes
Mm,
and I was doing all the things and staying by her. And I even tried to, play and be silly and distract her. And it worked for a second and then it didn't work. And
yeah.
then my mind was like, this lady kept giving us a stink eye. And I was like, it's okay. She can judge me, you know. And then it
Hmm.
finally worked. And I was a little bit jealous when my husband grabbed her and started playing and like splashing her and jumping her in the pool. And then she just forgot completely about it.
Yes.
And she was fine for the last 15 minutes. But it went on for a good 30 minutes. And normally I would have been like, we're going home. you can't swim, like we told you ahead of time. And I just sat with it, and it wasn't about her, it was about me. I was just kept focusing on myself, and like, I'm okay
Mm-hmm.
with this. Like, I can allow my daughter to cry it out, and like, and she is allowed to have those feelings, and I
Right.
don't have to give in and fix her feelings or say, okay, fine, you can, you can take your floaters off. And so it just was a really good picture of all of the different things that I've been working on
Mm-hmm.
kind of come all to light in this one situation. So,
That is beautiful. You illuminated so many parts of what we talk about with connect method parenting. Like all emotions are okay. Other people's judgments mean nothing about us, just about them.
yeah,
Holding a firm yet compassionate limit. I could probably go on and on and on. Using play as a way to help a young kiddo, especially, see if they're going to go with it and distract themselves and get them thinking about something else, which eventually worked with your husband. But so many
yeah,
things came together. Oh my gosh, that's a huge win. And what's really interesting is your brain. I mean, you obviously recognize it to share it here, but I'm guessing as you think back on spring break, it's so easy to minimize that win and just focus on maybe the other things that didn't go as well. But
yeah,
recognizing the wins that we have and saying, no, like this is working, and I don't just focus on what's not working. I can focus on what's working, and that will perpetuate more growth. It's so good. So I'm so glad you shared it. And that
yeah,
was the perfect example of just things coming together and releasing that control. Like it's fine. Like this isn't going to go the way I want her to just get over it and be done with it. And it didn't necessarily really go that way. And it's beautiful,
right,
even though it's beautiful. And the relationship wasn't compromised. Yes. So many things,
right.
man. We could dissect that.
I feel like my biggest win was I was able to stay in control. And I was
Yes.
like, most people are
Safety.
annoyed by her crying. Normally, I would be annoyed by her crying. That was my biggest win, is that I was like emotionally in control and able
Mm-hmm.
to be there for her instead of get frustrated myself.
That is the big win here for
Yeah.
100% sure. Because when we can be regulated and not get triggered, we can handle anything, like
Yeah,
just anything, throw it our way. We got it. And such a confidence booster, wouldn't you say, in yourself and your ability and your
totally.
capacity? Evidence that all this is working. Oh my goodness. So, so good.
People used to say, "Oh, you're so patient with your kids," or "How are you so patient?" It really has nothing to do with patience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm learning that. I mean, some people, yes, are gifted with more patience, but 90% of mothers, it's not patience, it's the work that they're doing behind it to not take mirror their kids' emotions.
Thank you for sharing that. It's such an important message. And it's so powerful coming from your mouth because you've gone through this journey and implemented it and seen, the work that it takes and how Connect Method Parenting spells out those steps really clearly so you can take it and do that work. But it is the work. It's the changes in our brain and our safety and our nervous system and all of the things that allow us to show up the way we always thought we would as a mom. We're like, this is how I thought it
Right.
was going to be. Because we love our
Hmm.
kids crazy, but we still, we didn't think we'd be so annoyed by some of the things they did.
Right.
So good. Well, thank you. Anything else before we wrap it up? I feel like we could just keep talking for hours because you're just such a wealth of information and experiences that really show the results of Connect Method Parenting. But anything else?
Yeah, I could probably go on, but I feel like I just really appreciate everything that I've learned from you. And I
Mm,
feel like it is possible, like you said, the one message out there, be patient with yourself, take it one step at a time, and don't judge yourself. That's always also been the biggest thing, is removing the judgment and recognizing all of your kids' behaviors and emotions are okay. Well, not behaviors, emotions are okay, and so are yours.
right.
All of your, no matter
Absolutely.
what, if you're like, I'm so annoyed at my child right now, that's okay. You don't have to
Hmm.
feel like a horrible mother because you are, have those kind of emotions or feelings. And
Yeah,
so,
they make sense. There's a reason why our nervous system has decided to have that emotion. And knowing that is
mhm,
so empowering. It flips from there's something wrong with me to there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just a human. It's doing a normal
exactly.
human thing. And let me just use what humanness I have to be the best human I can for my parents. So good. Oh,
Hmm.
thank you again. So fun to chat. And thanks for sharing just what's possible for all parents who are willing to put in the work. I appreciate it so
Yeah, of
much.
course. Thanks.
Oh my gosh, wasn't that so good? Thank you, Emilee, for being an example of what is possible for everyone, you all, every one of us. If we decide to consistently do the simple, doable Connect Method parenting implementation steps, which I lay out for you in League, if any parent who is dedicated to showing up differently with your kids decides to do these steps, you can have results just like Emilee. If you enjoyed the podcast, I would be so grateful if you would leave a review, if you would subscribe. It helps get the message out of Connect Method parenting to the world, because that's how Apple and Spotify decide if they're going to suggest this to other parents looking for a good podcast on parenting. And that's my goal, is to get this out to as many parents who are ready to shift from a corrective to a connective parenting style. And tune back in later this week for the next installment of the Connect Method Parenting Book Club. It's going to be on Thursday. Once you've listened to the book club episode, be sure to share a takeaway and tag us so that we can share your takeaway on our feed, and so that you can get entered into the drawing that's part of the Asynchronous CMP Book Club. All right, we'll talk to you guys very soon. See you later. Bye. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, come check out League, my Connect Method parenting coaching program, where we take this material and we apply it using my proven formula. Head over to cmp.works/join.